I'm James Blanco. I'm a member of the West Lafayette City Council. I represent many of you on the council as an at-large member. Very proud to be here to be introducing Senator Bernie Sanders. Very proud to be showing my support for this reconciliation bill. This is a bill that will improve the lives of working class people all around this country, including myself. So personally, in addition to being on the city council, I'm learning the automotive trade. I'm learning to be a mechanic. And I'm taking classes at our local Ivy Tech. And I'm really proud that so I'm somebody who's left out by our Indiana's program. We have a program that does give some people a full ride to community college, but because I already went to college, I've been shut out of it. This bill will provide for me and for so many like me. This bill represents a fight for the future of this country. We need to build back from the coronavirus pandemic better, stronger than we've ever been before. And I'm proud to say that Bernie Sanders, he's representing us as chair of the Budget Committee, and I'm proud that he is there. And so, I just wanted to remind everyone, this event is about a dialogue. It's not merely Bernie speaking at us, but he wanted to make sure that we, while you guys have your voices heard, once you've made your remarks, to respect everyone else and don't disrupt the event. Now, without further ado, U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders.
Thank you. West Lafayette, thank you very much. This is an extraordinary turnout. What I'd like to do before we get going is all of you know what's going on in Afghanistan now, and we lost 13 brave soldiers. I want to have a moment of silence in memory of the sacrifice of the members of the military. Thank you very much. Well, let me thank all of you for being here. Let me thank that very fine band. Stay outside. And let me thank City Councilor James Blanco for his introduction. James, thank you very much. As some of you know, I have been all over this country as a candidate for president. We've had rallies, but tonight really is not a rally, it's something different. I'm here tonight as the chairman of the U.S. Senate Budget Committee, and what I want to do is something unusual, not done enough in the country, and basically to talk to people about what we're trying to do in Washington right now, and the kind of work we're doing on what I believe is the most consequential piece of legislation for working class people in the modern history of this country. So, you know, it's going to be a town meeting, and when I do town meetings in Vermont, I've probably done more than anybody in the history of Vermont, what we like to do is to bring people up, kind of ordinary people from the community who will talk about what's going on in their lives, their problems and their hopes for the future. We're delighted that after I speak, we're going to hear from 5 local folks. Neil Milet, who is a local farmer. We're going to hear from Shannon King, who is the youngest person ever elected to city council here in West Lafayette. We're going to hear from Cody Kenny, who is a dad and a construction painter from West Lafayette. We're going to hear from Adrian Singleton, he has his own fan club. He's a student studying here at Purdue, and we're going to hear from Mary, a mom who benefited from the unemployment program that we developed in the rescue plan. So we thank all of them. And what we'll do is, after they speak, I'll ask them a few questions, and then we'll open it up to all of you. And let me begin by saying, I think, what you all know, and that is that we are living in very difficult times. It's no secret. The COVID pandemic has claimed over 600,000 American lives. And right now, in hospitals all across this country, the ICUs are filled with people, many of whom have not been vaccinated. If I could say, I would hope that anyone who's watching this program on live stream, anyone here, please get vaccinated, not just for yourself, but your family. And last night I did a virtual meeting with nurses all across the country, and I just want to thank all of the nurses, all of the doctors, all of the medical personnel all over this country who have done such a great job saving our lives. So right now, as a nation and as a world, we're dealing with COVID, which is a terrible, terrible problem. And then on top of that, we are dealing with climate change, which is causing massive destruction in our country and around the world. And I know, I guess there are still some people, and I think maybe most of them are in the Republican caucus in the U.S. Senate, but there are some people out there who still do not believe that climate change is real. And I would just say to those people, open your eyes. Take a look at what's going on in California right now, what's going on in Oregon right now, what's going on in Siberia. They got a fire in Siberia which is larger than any other fire. The smoke is going over 1,000 miles in Siberia. Greece is on fire. There were massive floods in Germany and Belgium. Italy recently experienced the highest single day that Europe has ever seen. July was the best month ever recorded. As we speak, here in the United States, all over the world, drought is reducing food production, which is a major, major problem. So you got COVID, we got climate, and then we got Afghanistan that we're dealing with right now. And the good news is, in my view, that after 20 years of war, longest war, after the loss of over 2,400 members of the U.S. military, and after $1 trillion of spending, that war is finally going to come to an end. And that's the good news, but the bad news, obviously, is that the corrupt government in Afghanistan collapsed a lot faster than was expected. The Taliban, a bad news group of people, is now in power. And obviously, we are seeing death and chaos at the airport in Kabul as desperate people try to leave. So you got COVID, we got climate, we've got Afghanistan, and we've got a whole lot of other stuff out there. So we have real problems. And what we try to do in this town meeting, in meetings like this, is to not run away from those issues, put them out there on the table, and see how we go forward. But what I would say to you is that in the midst of all of these problems, I am here in Indiana this evening, absolutely convinced that if we have the courage and the determination to stand together in the fight for justice, the fight for economic justice, for social justice, for racial justice, and for environmental justice. And if we do not allow politicians to divide us up based on the color of our skin, or where we were born, or our religion, or our sexual orientation, if we can stand together, I am absolutely convinced that not only can we successfully address the crises that we face, but we can move this country forward in a very different and positive direction. Yes, we can do that. And I am here to tell you this evening that we are already making significant progress in that struggle. As a result of the American Rescue Plan, our country is now on the way toward a major and rapid recovery from the economic collapse we experienced during the heart of the pandemic. Unemployment is down compared to a year ago by half. Wages are going up, and we have come a long, long way in ending those long lines that existed in Vermont, I'm sure in Indiana, and all over this country of desperate people who were waiting for emergency food boxes because they had no money and no way to feed their kids. We have come a long way in addressing that issue. And let me tell you what else we have accomplished. As a result of the direct payments, cash payments that were made to working class families all across this country, and as a result of the $300 per month that working parents are receiving right now for each of their young children, we have reduced childhood poverty in America by over 50%. For many, many years, shamefully, our nation, the richest country in the history of the world, had the highest childhood rate of poverty of almost any major country on earth. Well, that is ending. Child poverty is going down. We are giving working families the help they need to raise their kids with dignity. So we are making progress, but clearly we still have a long way to go to create an economy that works for all Americans and not just the 1%, not just the billionaire class, and not just wealthy campaign contributors. So, as chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, let me tell you what we are doing right now as we speak to create an economy that is fairer and more equitable. We are now working on two major pieces of legislation that, when passed, and they will be passed, will create millions of good-paying jobs and address issues that have been ignored for a very, very long time. Now, the first piece of legislation I was not deeply involved in. The first piece of legislation, which has already passed the Senate, is a bipartisan infrastructure bill that will invest $550 billion in new money to rebuild the crumbling infrastructure. Now, I don't know what's going on in Indiana, but I have no reason to believe that it's any different than Vermont and other states where our roads, you're laughing, I guess it is as bad here as elsewhere, huh? But it's bad all over this country in terms of our roads that are crumbling, our bridges, our water systems. You know, one of the things that amazed me is I've gone all over this country. You may not know it, but there are millions of people who, when they on top in the nation, they cannot. Plants that need repair. We want to expand broadband. You know, a few miles outside of the state capital in Vermont, Montpelier, Vermont, hard to make an internet connection. Not sure you're investing in public transportation, et cetera, et cetera. So that bill will do what has been talked about for years. Go back 10 years, 20 years, everybody says, Republicans, Democrats, independents, everyone says, our infrastructure is crumbling, we gotta do something about it. We didn't. This legislation takes us an important step forward in doing that. Now, that bill, and I wanna get a little political here, that bill was supported, as some of you know, we have a strange situation now in the Congress. In the Senate, where I work, you got 100 members, 50 of them are in the Democratic caucus, 50 of them are in the Republican caucus. We have a majority because of the Vice President of the United States. So you got a 50-50 split in that infrastructure bill. All 50 members of the Democratic caucus voted for it. 19 Republicans voted for it, which means that 30 of them did not. They voted against it. Now, the second bill that I'm going to chat with you about is a bill that I am heavily involved with, and that is a $3.5 trillion piece of legislation, which, in my view, is the most consequential bill for working families in the modern history of this country, probably going back to the New Deal, FDR, and the Great Depression. This bill says loudly and clearly that now is the time for Congress to have the courage to stand up to the powerful, big money special interests that have such enormous power with their lobbyists over the economic and political life of our country. And that now is the time for the U.S. Congress to do what has not been done in a very, very long time, and that is stand with the working families of this country, stand with the children and the younger generation, stand with the elderly and the sick and the poor. And addition to all of that, now is the time for the United States to lead the world against the existential threat of climate change. Now, the good news is that we will pass that bill probably within the next 6 weeks or so. The bad news is that we will not, in all likelihood, get one Republican vote. Not in the Senate, not in the House. And I want you all to remember, just a few years ago, all of these Republicans who today are not prepared to stand for the working families of this country, just a few years ago, voted unanimously, or virtually unanimously, for massive tax breaks for billionaires and the wealthiest families in America. And now when we're trying to expand health care, they voted and almost succeeded. They lost by one vote, late John McCain, to repeal the Affordable Care Act and throw over 30 million Americans off the health care that they had. And today we cannot get one Republican vote for this legislation. So let me say a few words about what is in this bill, why I'm here this evening, and the context in which we write this bill. I don't have to tell any of you that in the United States today, the gap between the very, very rich and everyone else is wider than it has been in the last 100 years. We're going back to the Gilded Age, where so few people had so much and so many working people, lower income people, had nothing. And in the midst of the trend of the rich becoming richer while the middle class struggles, we are moving toward an oligarchic form of society. Today, the two richest people in America own more wealth than the bottom 40% of our society. You got that? Two people. These people have so much money, they really don't know what to do with it, and they're spending it on space trips. That's what they're doing with their money. Today, the top 1% owns more wealth than 92%. And since 2009 and the Wall Street crash of that period, 45% of all net income goes to the top 1%. Unbelievably, so we're looking at massive income and wealth inequality. And incredibly, just during this pandemic that we're still in, 700 billionaires in our country have become $1.8 trillion wealthier, while at the same time, thousands of essential workers, the people who work in grocery stores, people who work in hospitals, the people who work as bus drivers, as firemen, as cops, whatever, thousands of them have died, while the people on top have done phenomenally well. And meanwhile, while the very rich become much richer, working families coast to coast are struggling to put food on the table and to take care of their families. Today in America, over 90 million Americans are uninsured or underinsured. We lose some 60,000 people a year who don't get to the doctor when they should because they can't afford health care and because we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Today in America, the wealthiest country on earth, some 600,000 Americans are sleeping out on the street and do not have a place they can call home. And I got to tell you that in Washington, D.C., literally 2 blocks from the Capitol, there is a tent encampment of homeless people. And throughout this country, there are millions and millions of young people who are struggling with outrageous levels of student debt, and there are other young people who would love to get a higher education, but simply cannot afford the cost of tuition. Incredibly, since 1971, we have had, as all of you know, an explosion in technology and an explosion in worker productivity. The average worker today is producing far more than the workers did 50 years ago because of that technology. And yet, in real inflation accounted for dollars, there are many workers in this country today who are not making a nickel more than they did 50 years ago. Now, we need to pass the legislation I'm going to describe to you in a moment, because in the wealthiest nation on earth, it is unacceptable that half of our people live paycheck to paycheck. It is unacceptable that the younger generation has the dubious distinction of being the first generation in modern American history that will likely have a lower standard of living than their parents. So let me tell you briefly what this legislation will accomplish. For a start, we understand that it is absolutely imperative that we end the obscenity of some of the wealthiest people in this country. I'm talking about multi-billionaires who in a given year pay nothing in federal income tax, not a nickel. Can you imagine being one of the wealthiest people in the world, and while working people are paying their taxes, if you are rich and you got a whole lot of accountants and lawyers and you know how to manipulate the system, in some years you pay nothing in federal taxes. We are going to end that obscenity. And we are also going to end the obscenity of dozens of major profitable corporations, corporations that make billions a year, that stash their profits in the Cayman Islands and tax havens all over the world. We're going to end the obscenity of some of these corporations not paying a nickel in federal income taxes. Now, my Republican colleagues are busy telling everybody Bernie Sanders and the Democrats are going to raise taxes. You're right. We're going to raise them on the richest people in this country who start paying their fair share of taxes. But as President Biden made absolutely clear, under this legislation, no family in America making less than $400,000 a year will pay a nickel more in federal taxes. And in fact, many of those families will receive a very significant tax break. Now, as I mentioned a moment ago, under the American Rescue Plan that Congress passed earlier this year without any Republican support, working parents throughout the country are receiving a monthly check of $300. If we do not pass this legislation, those checks will end at the end of this year. That was an emergency bill that we passed, the American Rescue Plan. What we are trying to do and will do in this bill is extend those payments for working parents so they can continue to raise their kids with dignity. And any Republican out there who wants to end those payments and once again drive childhood poverty in this country high should be ashamed of himself or herself. Furthermore, this legislation that we're working on will address the dysfunctionality of our child care system. Do we have any parents out there? All right, good. Well, I can tell you again, I apologize for not knowing the story here in Indiana, but I can tell you in Vermont, the average cost of child care, which is about the national average, is $15,000 a year. In some places, it is higher, in some places, it's low. But about $15,000 a year for one child. If you have two, multiply that by two. Now, you tell me, if you are a working family making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, how can you afford $15,000 a year in child care? And the answer is you can't. And then on top of that, when all of us know that the earliest years of a child's life, 0 to 4, are the most significant intellectually and emotionally in terms of that child's development, we paid child care workers disgracefully low wages. So what this legislation will do is move toward making sure that no family in America pays more than 7% of their income for child care. And lower income families, child care will be free. Children are the future of our nation, and we have to make sure from their earliest days that they get the quality care that they need. And on top of revolutionizing the way we do care in America, we are going to make pre-K education, kids 3 to 4 years old, universal and free. In other words, what we're doing, God didn't create education, public education, starting at age 5 in kindergarten. The world has changed. Mom is working, Dad is working, and it is imperative that we make sure that our young people get the best care they can, pre-K free for all 3 and 4-year-olds in America. And by the way, when we make these changes in child care and pre-K, more than 1 million workers, mostly women, will be able to get back into the workforce, which is what they would like to do. As some of you may know, there is one major country on earth that does not guarantee paid family and medical leave. Anyone know what country that happens to be? You got it. So all over the world, including poor countries, they understand that when a child is sick, mom or dad should be able to stay home with that kid and not lose their pay. Unbelievably, in America, we have situations, this is not an exaggeration, where lower income women give birth and a week later they are forced to go back to work because they need that income to take care of their family. How many of you know what kind of paid family and medical leaves exist in countries throughout Scandinavia and Europe? Anybody know? What do you get when you have a baby, say in Denmark? You get, it varies country by country, but in many of these countries you get 9 months, 10 months, a year off for mom, time off for dad, stay home and bond with their kids, either at full pay or 75 or 80% of pay. That's what a civilized society does. We are not there yet in this legislation, but it will guarantee 3 weeks of paid family and medical leave. All over this country, there are young people who are dropping out of college because of the cost. Other people can't afford to go to college, and other people are leaving school very, very deeply in debt. Anybody here happen to have some student debt or will be facing student debt? All right. Now, my own personal feeling, I speak only for myself, is that we should end all student debt in America. That is not in this legislation. With 49 other senators and a House of Representatives. But what is in this legislation is very, very significant. What's in this legislation is 2 years of free tuition at community colleges all across this country. And what that means are two things. It means that if you choose to go to a 4-year school, you can transfer those first 2 years of credit and where you're paying no tuition, and that's a pretty big deal. Or second of all, if you simply want to get the training that you need to get a good paying job that's out there, you'll be able to do that. On top of that, making community colleges tuition free, we're going to greatly expand Pell Grants to help working families. And we are going to make a large investment in HBCUs, historically black colleges and universities. Under this legislation we're talking about, we are going to make the largest investment in low-income and affordable housing in the history of the United States. All across this country, and it's not just homelessness, of which we have 600,000 people are homeless. It is the fact that we have some 18 million households who are spending 50% or more of their incomes on housing. Because in many communities all over this country, because of gentrification and in other reasons, cost of housing is sky high. We are going to build more low-income and affordable housing than any time in the history of this country. Further, as a society which is aging, but some of you are getting older, and a nation which has many, many people with severe disabilities, we are going to make a massive investment in home health care. And what that means is we're going to make it easier for older people and people with disabilities who want to stay in their own homes, get the help they need in their homes rather than force them into nursing homes. And further, this bill will make the most significant improvements in Medicare that we have seen in over 50 years. Now, my own view, again, I'm speaking for myself, not anybody else, is I happen to believe that the United States should join the rest of the industrialized world and guarantee health care to all people as a human right. And the easiest way we do that is develop a Medicare for all single-payer program. Now, many Americans don't know this, and unfortunately, you're not going to learn it when you turn on corporate TV, but here is a simple fact. In our country today, we pay far, far more per capita than do the people of any other country on earth. And yet, despite spending a fortune, I think the number is like $10,000 for every man, woman, and child, despite spending all of that money, so many of our people are uninsured or underinsured. They can't afford their co-payments. They can't afford their out-of-pocket costs. And on top of all of that, of course, we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. I will never forget, I was in Detroit a few years ago, and I took a group of folks from the Midwest into Windsor, Ontario, to purchase insulin. And do you know what the cost of the same exact insulin product in Canada was compared to the United States? 1/10 the price. 1/10 the price for the same damn product. What this bill does, among many other things, is tell the pharmaceutical industry we're going to end their greed. We're going to have Medicare negotiate prescription drug prices with the pharmaceutical industry so that they cannot charge us any price that they want. And furthermore, what we are going to do is expand Medicare to cover dental care, hearing aids, and eyeglasses. I have seen in Vermont, and I'm sure it is true here in Indiana, that you got a lot of old people who have no teeth in their mouth or teeth that are rotting in their mouths because they can't afford the very high cost of dental care. There are senior citizens who can't communicate with their grandchildren because they can't afford hearing aids. People cannot see properly because they cannot afford eyeglasses. So it is not everything that I want, but expanding Medicare to cover dental care, hearing aids, and eyeglasses, and lowering the age of Medicare eligibility is an important step forward. But this bill does not only deal with the human needs of working families in our country in a way that is very long overdue. What it does, in the most significant way in American history, is understand that the United States of America must lead the world in transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. This bill will put hundreds of billions of dollars into transforming transportation in this country, make our homes and buildings more energy efficient, make agriculture greener, and also on top of all of that, we are going to put many billions of dollars into a civilian climate corps. And what this civilian climate corps will do is provide good wages, strong wages, and educational benefits. Help young people pay off their student debt or help other people put away some money to afford college. And those young people will help lead our country in combating climate change and transforming our energy system. So I'm not here to tell you this afternoon that this bill does everything. It does not. There are so many things that yet remain to be done that is not in this bill. And I should also tell you that this bill is a work in progress. It is being worked on right now. I gave you the outline of where we're going, but all of the details are being worked on by numerous committees in the House and the Senate. But I think what is fair to say about this legislation, which again is going to be funded by demanding that the wealthy and large corporations start paying their fair share of taxes. What we can say is that never in our lifetime has there been a piece of legislation which goes as far as this does in addressing the long neglected problems facing the working class and the middle class of this country. What I would like to do now is bring up some of your neighbors to talk a little bit about what's going on in their lives and what they would like to see in a budget and where they would like to see America go. And let's begin with Neil Milet, who is a local farmer who's growing soy and corn and recently patented a combine that sequesters carbon and other technology that minimizes the carbon footprint for farming. Neil, come on up.
It's great to be here tonight. My guess is you probably didn't expect to hear a farmer talk, but it's great to see everyone. Good energy. Let's hear it one more time for Bernie. Well, I am a farmer, and I'm proud to be one. Living in rural America is really a special thing. It's more than just, yeah, there we go. It's a special place, right? But more than anything, I think it's what makes it special, the people. You can go to California or Chicago or London, wherever you want to go and do great things. But staying at home with your parents, your family, taking your grandma out for ice cream, it's hard to beat that, especially at this point for me in life. Our farm's a little bit unique. Yeah, we grow corn and soybeans, but we like to invent stuff too. My friend Ben and I, we farm together, and we help each other invent stuff. So together, over the last 10 or 15 years, we've collectively amassed about 30 global patents. So you can only watch so much basketball, and you get kind of bored. So long story short, over the last few years, we've been really working hard to say, hey, how can we be leaders in the innovation space for farming? And does anybody here know what a combine is? You see those things out in the field? All right, they're usually red and green, but we developed one that's orange. It's called the Tribine. And the goal for the Tribine is to reinvent 70 years of stagnant innovation when it comes to the harvesting space. And essentially what this does is it helps use less fuel because you can cover the ground and harvest the crop without a grain cart. And we've also started doing stuff so we can actually plant a cover crop as we're harvesting in corn, soybeans, wheat, whatever. And there's a whole lot more coming. A whole lot I can't talk about yet. It's going to be real exciting. Now, I've been really fortunate. I want to acknowledge that. I got to go to Purdue. I met tons of wonderful friends. There we go. Boiler up. All right. There we go. I see some IU shirts out there, too. We'll give you a free pass today. There's no game going on. But there we go. But I've been really lucky, and I want to acknowledge that many of the people from my community don't have those same opportunities. And to become an entrepreneur, it takes so many people. In my case, hundreds of people we've engaged all over the world over the last few years. So I have a degree of empathy in a major way on ways that this legislation can help build infrastructure to give kids internet access and help develop programs so we can bring people and mentor them and give them opportunity. It goes so deep. I think it goes deeper than that. One of the things I think about a lot when I'm in the tractor, which is a lot, listening to the radio, is why can't people get along? And I don't seem to have a problem with that. I've got friends from all over the world, different walks of life, and I realize the one thing that brings us together is innovation. And if we can get infrastructure implemented, we can potentially help kids from rural America and the urban centers use their ideas and their collective knowledge and their dreams and their passions to say, hey, we may not agree on everything, but we can use everything else that we're capable of to make the world a better place. Thanks, everybody.
Shannon King is the youngest person ever elected to City Council here in West Lafayette, and she's going to talk about why she's involved in politics.
All right. Hi, everyone. As Senator Sanders said, my name is Shannon King. I am the daughter of two proud Korean immigrants, making me a very proud Korean immigrant. Korean American. I ran for city council my freshman year of college. I really wanted to get involved, and I actually got an email from a recent a city councilor now, and he was like, "Are you interested?" And I said, "Hell yes." I started my term January of 2020, and more than that, I'm also the Purdue Student Government Student Body President. I was elected last year, and I am serving today. The district that I serve right now is District 3. District 3 makes up a majority of the student dorms, so my constituents are the Boilermakers. I'm a senior studying political science, and Senator Sanders, maybe one day I'll see you in the Senate. Today I'm here to talk to you as a city councilwoman about the climate crisis right now. So the first question is, why is the climate crisis important to me? Why do I care so much? At a really young age, I realized that my personal consumption of goods, it was impacting the environment in a really harmful way. The first thing that I noticed was when I would go and put a piece of paper in the trash can, I'd be like, where does this go and what happens to this? And so I joined recycling club. I remember after school we would bring out the paper with Mrs. Watts into the dumpsters and just dump them out. That was my cause, and I was really proud of it. Now thinking about the 7 billion people in this world that aren't intentional about our consumption of human goods, it really just bothers me. And every time I use a single-use plastic, every time I go travel via plane, I wonder, multiply this times 7 billion. That's insane. So I knew that my passion as a climate activist was essential. And today we've brought more attention to the impacts of our consumption of goods, but that's not enough. I think this infrastructure plan, especially the Civilian Climate Corps, will address what we need. And more importantly, it's a direct opportunity for young people to get a job, to get a livable wage, and work to do something to better our climate. And that's so crucial. And how important is a livable wage? Well, how important is food? How important are clothes? How important is it to enjoy your life? That's how important it is to get a livable wage. So, as someone who is looking for a job, as a senior in college, I am in fully support of the CCC. This is something we desperately need for our climate, for our youth, and for our economy. Thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you, Shannon. Cody Kenny is a dad and a construction painter from West Lafayette, and he's going to talk a little bit about how the American Rescue Plan helped him during a tough time. Cody?
Hello, my name is Cody Kenny, and I'm proud to be here. I'm actually from Columbus, Indiana. I'm 41 years old, and I'm a member of Hoosier Action. I would just like to share my experience with the pandemic unemployment assistance, the impact it made on me and my children. I'm a single father of 2 wonderful kids. Thank you. I was able to push through traumatic brain injury, so I'm a traumatic brain injury survivor, as well as post-traumatic epilepsy survivor, so thank you. I grew up in a trailer park, and I had a lot of rich kids around me, and it was kind of different because I played on a hockey team, and it's a really expensive sport. So getting the equipment from the used closet rather than going into Pirani's or some of the local hockey places that sell like brand new equipment was never an option for me growing up. So that's just a little bit of my background, but I wanted to say what happened with me in the pandemic and the the assistance I was, the resource and I was given. It impacted my life by I was able to buy my son the hockey equipment that I've never been able to purchase for him ever. Like, in the presence of the hockey community, I felt more accepted. Because a trailer park boy, I'm not straight out of Compton or nothing, but I'm a trailer park boy. But like feeling accepted in the higher economic status, like socioeconomic status, it was really rough. But so having that to provide for my son, and I guess having dignity around other parents really affected my life and my kids' life. And I think part of me almost feels I've never received unemployment in my life as a man, so I know I have a strong work ethic. I was in the fields detesting corn when I was 12 years old, pulling for Pioneer. I've worked through TBI, I've worked through this, I've worked through that, but working with a real living wage I have not done. And when I received the pandemic unemployment assistance, like I said, I was able to provide. I got caught up also on my child support I was behind. Like these things were very impactful in my life. Thank you. There was just a sense of hope that I had, that I think the vibe of that kind of echoed through my children too. They could feel it, and the people around me. It gave me a sense of dignity, like I said. I know I'm not the only one in here possibly that's going through this or went through the assistance with pandemic help. And it wasn't something that was really talked about or shared, because the different classes of people. It's like, but I feel grateful that I did receive it, and I think I'm fully supportive of the bill, and I think we need to pass this bill because it not only provides a real living wage. This was the first time I had any type of government invest into me. Rather than, so this is just from my heart. I thank you for letting me be here, and I have hope for the bill. Thank you.
All right. And just to be clear, Cody, you are speaking for millions of people. Doesn't get a whole lot of attention. People who lost their jobs during the pandemic, couldn't go to work in fear of, getting sick. And we were able to provide help to those people to let them and their kids live with dignity. So thank you for coming up here and saying that. Adrian Singleton is a student studying earth sciences at Purdue University. Adrian.
So, hello everyone. So my name is Adrian. I am a graduate student at Purdue, where I study earth science, and I'm here today to talk about something that keeps me up at night. I'm here to talk about environmental justice. I'm here to talk about climate change. I'm here to talk about lead and other contaminants in our drinking water, in our soils, and our air quality. But these aren't things that only expert scientists think about. They're things that impact everyone, right? millions of climate refugees are being displaced right now. Their homes and land are being destroyed by rising sea levels, by flooding, by hurricanes, or by wildfires. The Dixie Fire, currently burning in California, is the largest wildfire in California's history. While this year, other record-breaking wildfires have spread across the globe. And this is a public health crisis, too, because wildfires impact air quality, making it difficult to breathe. So, as we know today, this is a hot summer, and this July was the hottest month ever on record globally. So, many of us can't afford the high electric bill when we turn on the AC. In the middle of this massive heat wave, we're also experiencing a massive housing crisis. Right here in Tippecanoe County, more than 1 out of 10 people are behind on rent and could face eviction, right? That's 10% of our neighbors. That's 1 out of 10 of us, right? That could face eviction and be kicked out of our homes in the midst of dangerous heat. And being unhoused is dangerous, right? Especially given climate change. And so I think this is a deeply moral failing, because it's clear that inequality grows. As inequality grows, climate change will only deepen the injustices that we already face. Right, it will exacerbate unsafe and intolerable working conditions, especially for those who work outside, racial and gender violence, and put blame on climate refugees and immigrants. But we've known about climate change for decades, and we know who's actually responsible. The CO2 emissions of the wealthiest 1% are double the emissions of the poorest half of the global population. And so let's be frank, a better world is possible, and a better world is necessary. It's clear that we must solve the environmental crisis and the crisis of inequality at the same time. Billionaires who profit from the fossil fuel industry are trying as hard as they can to pit our jobs against the health of the environment. But we know that we don't have to choose. We can build green infrastructure while also guaranteeing health care for all, housing for all, education for all, and jobs for all. And we know that building a green public energy system would produce good-paying union jobs. If Bernie's reconciliation bill passes, countless of us could be employed by a newly created civilian climate corps. I'm job searching right now. It's hard. But to win a Green New Deal, and we want to win a Green New Deal, right? To win a Green New Deal, we need a working class that is organized. We need a working class that is unionized. To win a Green New Deal, we need a working class that can demand change, not just ask for it. And so the first step to building worker power and fighting for a Green New Deal is also here, bundled in Bernie's reconciliation bill. It's called the PRO Act. That's the Protect the Right to Organize Act. And it would be the most robust piece of pro-labor, pro-union legislation in decades. And so I'm hoping that all of us here today, and this is a very, very large crowd, I hope that all of us here today will organize together for both a better planet and a better Indiana. Solidarity, everyone.
Thank you, Adrian. Mary Mccloskey is a mom who's going to say a few words about unemployment compensation.
All right, hello everybody. My name is Mary Mccloskey. I'm really excited to tell everybody my story today. I am a Hoosier Action member. I'm from New Albany, Indiana, and I began a Facebook group at the beginning of the pandemic to help people navigate unemployment in Indiana. I have now helped over 9,700 Hoosiers in Indiana since the pandemic began. Throughout my life, I have had my own struggle of living in poverty and having to fight against the system. Being a single mother of 2 kids, it's nearly impossible to afford things such as health insurance or enough groceries on a waitress's salary. I had no choice during the 16 years I worked in the service industry but to turn to the assistance programs. However, every time I applied, there was a problem, something was missing, or I was denied. So I took it upon myself and downloaded the state's training manuals and researched all the Indiana state codes pertaining to the programs SNAP and Medicaid. This is how I knew I could win, and I did. When the pandemic started and I saw what was happening with the unemployment, and I knew I could do the same thing I did before, and I could also teach other people. I and thousands of other Hoosiers have struggled through the pandemic, and without the federal unemployment benefits that Mr. Sanders has fought so hard for us to get, we would not have been able to make it through this situation. Okay. Now that they are ending, Hoosiers are worried because of the surge of COVID. We still have schools closing, children are being quarantined, and parents are being sent home from work. Investing in human infrastructure is one of our most valuable assets to aid Hoosiers and all Americans rebuild after the pandemic. Our biggest worries are child care and decent paying jobs. Hoosiers want to return to work, however, the world we once knew no longer exists. I would like to end with this. Before my dad passed away earlier this year, his parenting advice to me is the goal is not to be the best parent, but it is to be a better parent. So we have to stop thinking about the world that we once had and start thinking about the world we're leaving our kids. We have to build it back better for them.
Thank you, Mary. Okay, what we're going to do now as best we can. In Vermont, when I have town meetings like this, we usually have a few hundred people, not 1,000 or something. So we'll do the best we can. I think we got Misty, raise your hand. Oliver? Okay, we got 2 folks with mics. If people have a question, make it short, and I'll do my best to answer it. All right, stand up if you got a question. All right, I see a hand over there. Yep.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Can you hear me? Yes. Hello, Senator Sanders. Hi. I just want to say my name is Shai. I'm a second year student at Purdue. I love you so much. Thank you for being here. Yeah. And thank you everyone else for being here. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for your time. We share the same zodiac sign. Anyway, I want to get involved in politics. That's my career. I want that to be I'm going to school for political science. How do I get involved?
Okay.
I want to work for you.
Good question. There are two ways that you can address politics. One way is that you could say, you know what, someday I want to be a governor or a senator or a congressperson. How do I move up the ladder and do that? And there are a lot of people who do that. That's not the way I suggest. The way I suggest is doing what some of the folks up here are doing, and that is going into your communities, finding out what the problems are, and organizing. The reason that the rich get richer and so many working families are struggling and kids leave school with huge student debt and people sleep out on the street is because, as I think somebody here said, we are not organized effectively. So if you want to run for office, and I'm here to encourage all of you, I think it's great that we have young people running for office and winning seats, but it is most important that you educate and organize and get people to stand up for their rights. And when people all over this country say, we're not going to work for starvation wages, you're not going to have starvation wages. And when young people say, you know what, I need and want a higher education, and I don't want to have to be paying off my student debt for the next 100 years, we will make public colleges and universities tuition free. So, that's how you get involved, in my view, in politics. Okay, Oliver, you got a question over here? Okay, Purdue, all right, yes, gentleman right there, sir.
In light of the recent IPCC, do you find that any of the legislators are less intransigent than they used to be on climate change?
Yes and no. Mostly, you know, I think those of us who have known for years what a horrible threat climate change is to our country and the world, we have become more alarmed from the IPCC report. And they called us that we're in a red alert right now. And they're right. What they are talking about, and scientists all over the world are talking about 5, 6, 7 years, or else there will be irreparable harm to this planet. That the farmers here in Indiana and in Iowa are not going to be able to grow the quality and quantity of crops they do right now because of that heat. But sadly, and I really do say this sadly because I don't understand it, you know, my Republican colleagues, they are mothers and fathers, and they love their kids, and they love their grandchildren. I know that they do. I just do not understand why they are not prepared to stand up to the lies and the greed of the fossil fuel industry and help us transform our energy system to save all of our lives. It is a very weird thing that you have people today making billions of dollars destroying the planet that their own kids and grandchildren are going to have to live on. So I don't understand that. To answer your question, I think consciousness is being raised all over the country. People, no matter what your politics are, cannot help but see what climate change is doing just in the last few months.
Thank you, Mr. Senator. I'm a proud member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I want to know, what's this bill going to do for my industry and my fellow brothers and sisters?
A lot. And thank you for your support of trade unionism. Just yesterday, coincidentally, I spoke to a guy in Vermont who's one of the leaders of the IBEW in Vermont and New Hampshire. I don't know what you're doing here in Indiana, but all over this country, IBEW members are installing solar panels. You're doing that here? Well, that's what you're doing now. Okay, thank you for doing that. We are going to invest tens of billions of dollars for residential solar rooftops and utility scale solar. And I expect that some of you guys are going to be doing that work. So thank you.
My name is Xavier Lopez. I'm a sophomore currently at Purdue University. And coming into this town hall, I didn't know much about the reconciliation bill, what it was supposed to do. But after hearing you speak, and after hearing some people, I think, what's your name, Cody? Cody, after hearing Cody speak, my main concern was what this bill was going to do for the future. Right now, I had to get, in order to pay for college, I had to get scholarships. I had to grind all the way over since high school to be able to pay for college. And I have not paid a single dime in college because of scholarships. But I can tell you right now that a lot of my peers here are not as fortunate. So hearing how this bill has already affected some people like Cody and affected his children is something that really warms my heart, because I know that this is something that can last, years in the future, that this bill will be something that, my kids can benefit from. And
right.
I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Well, look, what some of us are trying to do, thank you very much for your comments. What we're trying to do is change the social paradigm. That you stop and you think. Anybody who has a brain in his or her head understands that in a competitive global economy, we need the best educated workforce in the world, right? No one doubts that. And people understand that literally today in Vermont and in many parts of this country, there are important, good-paying jobs. We do not have in Vermont solar installers, the number of solar installers that we need. We don't have the number of nurses that we need. We don't have the doctors. We don't have the dentists. We don't have all kinds of workers in important areas. A sane society says we want to make sure that all of our kids, regardless of their income, get the best education that they can. All right? And that means you want to be a mathematician, that's great. But we need people who can do plumbing, who can do carpentry, who can fix cars. We need people to get trained to do that as well. So the demand has got to be, and we're not there yet. This bill is a good start, making community colleges tuition-free and expanding Pell. But the day will come with your help where we will make higher education, public higher education, tuition-free. That's what we've got to do.
Senator, I have another question back here.
Where are you, Misty?
All the way back here. To your right.
Okay. Oh, there you are. Okay. Good. How are you?
Hello, my name is Nathan Moran, and I have a lot of friends online that after 2020 elections, voting for you and stuff, and you losing, sorry, by the way, but because of that, they are disillusioned and don't know what to do, and if they even should be involved in politics because they don't think anything's going to change. How do you address them?
I beg of those students, and I thank them all for their support, if there ever was a time not to sit it out, not to allow yourself to become disillusioned, this is the time. And I want to say this. The reason, and I think, the reason that we are looking at this bill right now is because of a strong progressive movement all across this country. We have raised consciousness. And my friends in the House and the Senate, we have some great members. I don't know if you all know, great new House members. Cori Bush, among many others. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And many others. We helped elect them. You helped elect them. So what we have already done is, in a very significant way, change consciousness so that ideas like free tuition at public colleges or universities or community colleges is no longer a radical idea. Healthcare for all, not a radical idea. The need to address in a very aggressive way climate change, not a radical idea. You're seeing all of that in this legislation. So I say to all of those who supported me, thank you. But the struggle continues, and we are now fighting. We are fighting for the future of this planet. This is a fight that no one can afford to not participate in.
Hi, my name is Brooke. I'm a student at Purdue. My question is, so with everything going on, everything can be pretty scary. Like we have 7 years left to fix the climate crisis, or what's going on in Afghanistan. Do you feel that fear is a valuable asset in the fight for change? And if not, how do we combat it?
I think rational fear is a useful tool. But what I am nervous about is that some of my right-wing colleagues are using the fear factor not to bring us together to address the crises that we face, but to divide us up. You know, because of where we were born, or our sexual orientation, or the color of our skin, or our religion. We're supposed to be frightened of people who might be a little bit different than we are. And our view as progressives is exactly the opposite. Our view is to bring people together to combat our common enemies, to bring people together to fight for a just society, to deal with income and wealth and equality and climate change and health care for all. So should we be fearful about climate? Boy, absolutely we should. But the result should be is to aggressively go forward to address this crisis. That's what we should be doing.
Senator, I have another question over here.
Okay.
Hi, thank you for coming today. I have a question about mental health.
Yep.
There is a huge mental health crisis in Indiana right now. My 13-year-old daughter was taken to the emergency room on Tuesday with suicidal thoughts.
Oh, God.
They released her and gave me a list of places to call to get her into. I called 30 different places the next day. Nobody would take her. Nobody. I finally got her in. I have to drive an hour to the place, and they do not accept insurance. Is there anything in this bill that addresses mental health?
Absolutely. Look, and I'm sorry to hear about your daughter, but I want you to know, I mean, we had a serious mental health crisis before the pandemic. It has only been exacerbated by the pandemic. I know of a family, you know, where a young boy is frightened to death when his mom or dad leaves the house, fearful that they're going to get sick and die. What we are seeing in Vermont, same thing. And we don't have enough. We do better, I think, than most states in Vermont, but we don't have anywhere near enough counselors or psychologists or psychiatrists or those that we need to address the mental health crisis. So to answer your question, this is a crisis in every state in this country, and we are going to I'll give you something, an example of what we were able to do. It's not by any means a cure-all. None of these things going to solve all problems. We tripled funding in the American Rescue Plan for summer programs and after-school programs. So what we recognized is that you had kids who went through the worst year of their lives, and we gave school districts all over the country substantially more money to have recreational programs, to have academic programs in the summer, and to make their kids feel a little bit better. So there is an enormous amount of work to do. You are not alone in this, and the answer is yes. There are billions of dollars going into mental health in this bill.
Hi, Bernie. I'm Wyatt Gettinger. I'm from a small town in rural Indiana called Marinum. It has about 200 or so people in it, and it's a food desert. So in order to get groceries, people have to drive about 10, 15 miles to the nearest grocery store. Now, there's been talk about setting up like a Dollar General on the far outskirts of town, to where everyone would have to drive to it, to provide groceries. But from what I've read, Dollar Generals just suck the wealth and life out of communities that they reside in. So what I'm asking, is there anything in the reconciliation or the bipartisan bill or even future legislation that would address these food deserts? And because I know, like in red line communities with African Americans, Hispanics, where the population is much denser, they face this problem even worse.
That's right. That's a great question. I can't give you a definitive answer. What I will tell you, what is in this legislation is a lot of money for agriculture and for organic agriculture, and the goal to allow people and schools to purchase good quality agricultural products locally. That there is in there. But you raise a serious question. I don't know the answer. I can't tell you if there is a provision in the bill to deal with that. Ms. Lee? Okay.
Senator Sanders, given that you were steamrolled into not passing the $15 minimum wage by Biden, how can we be sure that you won't allow the conservative Democrats in the Senate to take out the progressive parts of the reconciliation?
Good question, but your starting assumption is not correct. We were not steamrolled by Biden. I won't bore anybody here. If you want to get bored, if you have trouble sleeping some night, read Senate rules. And that'll put you right to sleep. You know, what ended up happening is that, among other things, we had 0 Republican support to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and we did not have all Democrats. That's the simple truth, and you had a parliamentarian, well, that's a whole other question. You can, but look, I wish I could tell you that everybody in the caucus has my political views. They don't. We work very hard. I talked to you about what the American Rescue Plan did. That got 50 votes. We lose one person, we don't have it. So, you know, Chuck Schumer, who's the leader, is working hard, trying to bring people together to do the best that we can. Is your point worthy of concern? Yeah. Are we going to have to fight like hell in the House and the Senate to maintain and protect the progressive provisions? We will. Okay.
One up here, Senator.
Okay.
At the top right in the middle.
Okay.
Thank you for coming, Bernie. My name is Larry Alexander. I live 2 hours in South Bend, Indiana. But my concern is, on this reconciliation bill, how are we going to make these pharmaceuticals back off on jacking the prices up when my wife's medicine of Xarelto went from $92 for a 3-month supply, and she got a notice 2 weeks ago it was going up to $580. How do we stop that?
Well, I will tell you how I would stop it, and I don't know that we're going to get there in this bill, but we're going to make some progress. You should understand, first of all, the issue that you raised with your wife, millions of people are in the same boat. The pharmaceutical industry is perhaps the most powerful lobbying force in Washington. All right? They have hundreds and hundreds of paid, well-paid lobbyists, including former leaders of the Democratic and Republican parties all over Washington. They have never lost a political battle. And that is why they can raise their prices to any level they want, and why it is quite likely that your wife is paying far, far more for the same medicine that people in Canada or Europe or Mexico are paying. If we are successful in this bill, it doesn't do everything I want. It will be the first time in American history that Congress will have stood up to the pharmaceutical industry. Now, what does it do? Well, we don't know. It's not all written yet, but one thing for sure, the President was just talking about this the other day. It will have Medicare negotiate prescription drug prices with the industry. The irony is the Veterans Administration does that. Medicare does not. If we are successful, Medicare will, and we're doing other things to lower the cost of prescription drugs. In my mind, The business model of the pharmaceutical industry is fraud. They are the biggest bunch of crooks in this country. And they are responsible. I have talked to too many people who have become sick or seen family members become ill because they cannot afford the outrageous price of drugs in this country. Meanwhile, year after year after year, they make enormous profits and they pay their CEOs outlandish compensation packages. So we are beginning. It ain't going to be everything I want, but this legislation begins for the first time to take on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry.
I have a question right here, Senator.
All right, maybe we'll do just a few more questions.
Hello, Senator Sanders. My name is Krisha Saha, and I'm a senior at the West Lafayette High School.
Wonderful.
So you said that the best way to get politically involved is to get involved with your community and organize initiatives within your community.
Yep.
So my question is, how would you recommend that young people, specifically high school students, get involved with their community?
Good. First of all, delighted to see you here, and thank you very much for coming. All right, look, you have got to go out and speak to your fellow students and ask them what the issues are that are on their minds, okay? Now, maybe it has to do with what's going on in your own school. Maybe you're unhappy about this, that, and the other thing. In which case, you guys can come together and go to your local school board. Do you have a local school board? You have the right to go before your school board and say, look, we go to the school and we are concerned about A, B, and C. You have the right as students, I suspect many of your fellow classmates want to go to college and are worried about how they can afford to go to college, right? Bring in representatives of the state legislature. Bring them right in. Say, we want to do a town meeting like this to answer our questions, or come to our high school. Okay? Talk to the governor of your state. Talk to your state senators and your congresspeople. You are very important. When you put together a meeting which has, 100 young people, politicians are going to want to talk to you. And they're going to want to listen to what you have to say, or else they know you may not be voting for them in the future. Those are some of the ways you can have an impact on what's going on. Okay, maybe one last question. Oliver, where are you? Okay, here you go.
Good evening, Senator Sanders. I am a mother. I've been a Hoosier my entire life. I'm a United States Navy veteran, and I'm an electrician. Thank you. Something that is extremely important to me are my brothers and sisters in the trades. Not just unionized, because we, especially in a right-to-work state like Indiana, it's difficult to organize your workspaces. With addressing climate change, which is like first and foremost, my concern is the men and women who work in the trades that are going to be outdated by the Green New Deal, by doing the things we should do, like stopping mining for coal and oil fields.
Right.
And so with the bill, any of the bills that you have put forward, or even in future legislation, is it going to be possible to have transitionary programs?
Absolutely. Look, I don't know that there's anybody in the Congress who has a stronger pro-union record than I do. All right? And it has never dawned on me to think of coal miners or people who work in the fossil fuel industry, workers, as my enemy. They're not. They're working hard, sometimes hard, dangerous work, trying to make a living and take care of their families. They're not our enemy. So what we have got to do as we transform our energy system away from fossil fuel is make sure that we provide them with the income, with the health care, with the educational benefits that they will need in this transition. Absolutely. We're not going to leave them out high and dry, that's for sure. All right. Let me just, this is a great turnout here, and I want to thank all of you for coming out. We need people all over this country, and a great panel, we thank them for all the good work they do. We need everyone to think outside of the box. We need to understand that all of us are entitled to basic human rights, a good job, health care, housing, educational, good quality food. Okay? This is not utopian. We can do it. So let us not let anybody divide us up. Let us stand together and go about the business of transforming this country in the direction of justice. Thank you all very much.